Good day, everyone. I just wanted to follow up on the previous video I did in regards to look who's God is raising up, the type of people he's raising up. I failed to mention Ecclesiastes, and that was chapter 9, verse 15. I just wanted to read that right quick. It says, "Now there was found in it a poor wise man, and he by his wisdom delivered the city, yet no man remembered that same poor man." I wanted to bring that scripture out because, again, a lot of times people are drawn to people that they think have it going on or who God has chosen. This particular man, he was wise, but because he was poor, they forgot him, and he was the one that saved the city. I said all that to say this: no matter who you are, just do what God has called you to do, and whether people remember or not is not important as long as God knows your name. That's what matters. Moving on for today, I want to talk about sometimes you just don't feel like doing it. And I think some of us I think everybody goes through that sometimes you just don't feel like doing something, or you just don't feel like doing it. You don't feel like it. I remember I read a story, and even our pastor, everybody's heard of this story. Not everybody, but a lot of people hear about the story of, it was a young man who was sleeping, and his mom said, "Get up, you have to go to work, you have to go to church." He said, "But I don't want to." She said, "But you're the pastor." So just a little humor here. Sometimes, even when you're ministering, sometimes you just don't feel like ministering. Sometimes you are exhausted, and sometimes people will drain you. They will pull on you. I used to see our pastor all of the time after service, after he had just finished ministering, after service, staying there probably for an hour or two, or even longer. It's like, people don't think about that they are human, just like us. They get tired, but people will pull on you. They will suck you dry if you allow them. But just in life, doing chores as a kid, sometimes you just didn't feel like doing your chores. Sometimes you don't feel like getting up out of the bed, especially if it's raining and cold outside. Sometimes you just don't feel like doing anything. I know when I was single, a lot of times, many of times, I would just shut everybody out because sometimes you need that downtime. It's like, God, I just want to hear from you. I want to shut off everything. I want to shut off the noise. I would unplug my phone. Back then, of course, you had the landlines, but I would unplug the phone. That way, it would not ring. I wouldn't turn the volume down where I didn't hear the phone. Now, if you do that, just to warn you, it's best to let your loved ones know so they don't get concerned. Because, of course, my mom got upset, and she's like, "You're not answering your phone." So even now, when I do that, I make sure my spouse or close family is aware. Listen, um, I'm on a 21-day fast right now, so I'm shutting everything out. If you need me, text me. If I need to get back to you, I will. But sometimes you just don't feel like doing anything. Again, especially if you're not feeling well in your body. Or sometimes, again, I just like to stay home. I don't feel like getting out of the house. I don't feel like driving in traffic today. I don't feel like being around people today. I don't feel like talking to anyone today. Sometimes you just want those moments where it's just you and God. And we all, as children of God, should want that time where it's just you and God, shutting out the noise, making sure that He's the only voice that you hear. Um, which reminds me of the story of Jonah. Sometimes God wake me up in the middle of the night. Sometimes I'm disobedient. Yes, I will acknowledge it's disobedience. So anytime you know what to do, when you know what to do that is right and you don't do it, it's sin. So again, we think of the sin of things, that's basic that people know, okay, lying, cursing, fornication, adultery. But we forget about the other sins like disobedience, not obeying God or responding when He calls us. That's disobedience. So when we don't do things, sometimes it can affect someone else's life, it can affect your life, especially when God's like, move immediately, and we don't move, or make a decision, go this way. You know, God speaks to us, and sometimes we just don't feel like doing what He says, and it's to our detriment when we don't um, respond or do what God tells us to do. And it could be blood on your hands because you didn't witness to someone, just because you don't like that person, or maybe you guys had an altercation, or maybe you were just not talking at that time. Sometimes we just don't do things, again, out of selfishness, out of exhaustion, out of disobedience, and many other things. And I'm sure we can all attest to that there have been times when we just didn't feel like doing something. And I can understand if it's chores, something that's really not of significance. But when it's a life and death matter, we need to do it. If God is waking you up in the wee hours of the morning and said, pray, you can be preventing someone's death. You can be preventing or overturning a decision, or maybe you're going through some kind of trial, or who knows? You don't know what you're preventing at the time. You hear stories after stories when people in a different country, or maybe even a different state, or on the other side of the world, that was going through something. Their life was in danger, and a loved one, God um, had beckoned them or caused them to had um, can't think of the word I want to say, but anyway, you understand what I'm saying. When God had reached out to them and say, listen, you need to get up and pray. And then you pray and you prevented something bad from happening. So just with that in mind, just look at the story of Jonah. We always read about Jonah when he got swallowed up by the fish. Jonah just didn't feel like doing it because he didn't want the people of Nineveh to experience the mercy of God. God sent him to Nineveh to warn the people, and he didn't want to go because he knew God would have mercy on them in their wickedness. So we can't be selfish when it comes to doing things such as ministry. I was laughing about it as I was thinking about it. I used to be an altar worker at a church back home, and one of the persons who was working the altar is like, we were, laboring with a person, praying with that person, and he's like, well, I'm hungry. So he was more concerned about getting something to eat. Yes, it was after one, and of course, you are hungry. But when it comes to ministry, you have to forget about yourself. And even when you don't feel like doing something, do it. And again, that's when you're in line with what God is telling you to do. I'm not saying doing something just because people want you to do it, or you doing something out of obligation, or just for people to think, good about you, or say, oh, yeah, this person I could always depend on. Those times don't matter. But when you are doing it, when you know that's what God has called you to do, you're doing ministry, that's a whole different level. So again, I just wanted to share, as I was thinking about it earlier today, it's like sometimes you just don't feel like doing anything. Okay? Hopefully this helped someone. God bless. Have a wonderful day.